If you really want to understand the high-stakes game of virtualization subscriptions, you have to get the tech behind it first. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the technical foundation of the modern data center.
All right, before we jump in, just a quick heads up. This is the second part of our 10-part series, and it's all based on a deep dive report from Virtualization Options LLC. These explainers just scratch the surface of the full report, and of course, this isn't legal advice and comes with no warranty. Okay, let's get into it.
So, let's start with a question that gets right to the heart of it all. How on earth can one single physical computer act like it's 20 different computers, all running at the same time? I mean, it sounds like some kind of magic trick, but it's actually just some really, really clever engineering.
Well, that magic trick is called virtualization, and what it's really about is the art of abstraction. It's all about creating a clever layer that separates the software from the actual physical hardware it's running on.
So what is server virtualization in plain English? It's basically this special piece of software called a hypervisor that takes one big, powerful server and just slices it up. It creates these multiple, totally isolated virtual machines. And the cool part is, each one of these VMs thinks it's its own independent computer, even though, they're all secretly sharing the same box of processors, memory, and storage.
And that separation, that layer of abstraction, that's the key to everything. Once you separate the software from the hardware, you get this unbelievable flexibility. We're not in that old world anymore where you had one application stuck on one physical server. Okay, so it's time to meet the real star of the show, the piece of software that makes this whole thing work, the hypervisor. It is, without a doubt, the brains of the entire operation. I love this analogy. Just think of a hypervisor like the manager of an apartment building. The building itself is your physical server. The manager takes that one big resource and expertly divides it up into all these separate, isolated apartments for different tenants. And those tenants are your applications. The manager decides who gets how much electricity and water, and, most importantly, makes sure nobody's loud music is bothering the other tenants.
Now, hold on. Not all hypervisors are the same. You've got two main flavors. For the world we're talking about, big data centers, serious enterprise stuff, the one you need to know is Type 1, or bare metal. As you can see, it runs right on the hardware itself, no middleman. That's why it gives you way better performance and security. The other kind, Type 2, just runs like any other app on your laptop. It's easier for simple stuff, but for real business workloads, Type 1 is the undisputed king.
But the hypervisor isn't a solo act. It's more like the conductor of a whole orchestra of components that all work together to create what is basically a complete virtual data center, all in software. First up, you've got the whole reason we're doing this in the first place, the virtual machines, or VMs. These are the end product. Each one is a complete self-contained computer, completely walled off from its neighbors, running its own operating system and whatever apps you want to put on it. Okay, but if they're all isolated, how do they talk to each other? Or to the rest of the world? That's where virtual switches come in. It's networking, but it's all software. You can build these really complex networks, connect VMs to each other, and hook them up to the internet, all without ever having to plug in a single physical cable. It's amazing. And naturally, all these VMs need a place to store their data. Virtual storage is the answer. It takes a whole bunch of physical hard drives, kind of mushes them all together into one big pool, and then presents that storage to the VMs as these simple, flexible volumes. It makes managing storage capacity so much easier. And finally, we have the piece that ties it all together, the management console. This thing is the central nervous system. It's mission control. It's one single screen where an IT admin can see everything, control everything, and fine-tune the entire infrastructure, all from one place. We're talking about deploying new servers in minutes, not weeks.
So that's the how of virtualization. But what about the why? Why did the entire industry shift to this model? Well, the biggest reason, especially at the beginning, was the incredible power of consolidation.
This chart really says it all. Look at that bar on the left. Back in the day, your typical server was basically asleep at the wheel most of the time, using maybe 15% of its power. It was just an incredible waste of money and electricity. Virtualization lets us cram way more work onto that same piece of hardware, pushing that utilization number way up to 80%, sometimes even higher. And what does that efficiency actually look like? It looks like this, a 20-to-1 consolidation ratio. That is not uncommon. Let that sink in for a second. One physical server doing the work that used to take 20 separate machines.
The scale of that change is just massive. And all that tech wizardry, it translates directly into huge wins for the business. You're talking a smaller data center, which means lower rent, lower power and cooling bills, a lot less hardware to buy and maintain, and maybe the biggest win of all, the ability to spin up new servers in minutes. It completely changed the game for business agility.
But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This incredibly powerful centralized system isn't perfect. That single point of control that gives us all this power, well, it's a classic double-edged sword.
And that leads us to the critical question we have to ask. When you concentrate all of this amazing power into one single software platform, what's the catch? What's the hidden architectural trap?
And this image right here shows you the core dilemma perfectly. The hypervisor, the management software, the very system that gives you this godlike control over your entire infrastructure, it also becomes a single point of dependency. Everything, and I mean everything, flows through it. And when your access to that central control system is tied to a subscription you have to pay, well, you start to see the seeds of the hostage dilemma that we're going to break down in our next explainer.